Hey, happy Friday, everybody. I am having the best day. I went to my local Caloundra Chamber of Commerce coffee morning this morning, which is one of the things I love doing on a Friday morning. I'm just wiggling around my second camera here. Sorry about that, Instagram peeps. Love going to my local Caloundra Chamber of Commerce coffee morning because I always meet really interesting people, and this morning was no exception. So, are you a member of your Chamber of Commerce, and do you go to things? Let me know. If you're in Caloundra, I'm running an event through my chamber in a couple of weeks on boundaries. And funnily enough, boundaries is what I want to talk to you about today. So, one of the things that I love talking about is boundaries, because when we have healthy boundaries in place, we're far more likely to feel healthy, to be happier, to be less frustrated, because we are less likely to be that person who gets all the jobs because everybody else has good boundaries in place and knows how to say no. So boundaries are about things like, they're rules and guidelines that we create so that we can protect ourselves. And it isn't always about saying no. It's about setting limits as well. So one of the things that I have really clear limits on are how much I use my phone, how much I watch Netflix or TV in general, so that I can do other things. And with my phone, I'm set up so that I have a 1 hour limit each day on social media, across Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter, now X. What a stupid name, X. What were you thinking, Elon? But I've got a 1 hour, and some days I hit that hour at 8 o'clock in the morning. On a good day, I'll hit it late in the day, in the evening. On a bad day, I'll hit it in the middle of an Instagram live, and that has happened on a couple of occasions. Hopefully, it won't be happening today. But you can override that. So if it does hit at 8 a.m. and I'm needing to use my phone to schedule some posts or to comment on some posts later in the day, then I can override that. But I try really hard not to do that, because I used to spend 5 to 6 hours a day, 7 hours a day, 8 hours a day on my phone. And the vast majority of that time was on social media, which was not helpful, not adding value to my world in ways that other things do. So think about, are there boundaries, areas that you might need boundaries in your life? You're welcome to pop in the comments if there's anything that you're wanting to know, or that you're where you need a bit of support around that. Boundaries are not the easiest thing to set and to maintain, particularly if you are a people pleaser, or if you don't want to put up with the pushback that we can sometimes get from having clear boundaries and healthy boundaries in place. So I'd like to talk about boundaries in terms of being like your home. A home has a natural boundary because it has a front door, and you might even have a fence or a gate that keeps people out as well. So that's a boundary that you have control over, who can come in and cross that boundary. And when somebody violates that boundary, for example, if somebody breaks in, then how do you feel? How does that make you feel? I know I've had my home broken into 3 times in my life, 3 different homes. And the first time, my housemates and I were at home when it happened. And it was really quite frightening when we thought back on that time, later that night, when we realized what had happened. And there was a big feel of violation. So when we look at boundaries in terms of our home, not only do we have that front gate, but we can also choose who we let in to do different things. So, for example, I had a tradie here the other day, and he didn't even come in my home. He came onto my property to fix the thing that was outside that needed to be looked at, but he didn't need to come in. And had he said to me, "Can I use your bathroom?" I would have said, "Yeah, sure, here's the bathroom downstairs," which was the closest to the front door and the main entrance. There was no need for him to go upstairs, and there was absolutely no need for him to go into the bathroom in the ensuite that would have had him going through the bedroom. Compare that to if we had a party and, the main bathroom was in use. Absolutely, a good friend would be allowed into the bedroom and into the ensuite, because we've got a closer relationship, and so that boundary can be flexible. And boundaries are like that. A healthy boundary does have flexibility, unlike a porous boundary, which is like a sieve full of holes where things just, slide through without often you even realizing what's happening. Or if we have really rigid boundaries, which might be a really firm limit with no expectations going through. So, one of the areas where I talk a lot with my clients about setting boundaries are things like meetings. So many of my clients do, 4 to 6 to 8 hours a day in some cases of meetings. And I know when I was in a senior exec job in government before consulting, I frequently did 30 to 33 hours worth of meetings in a week, which meant that my time was not being used in a way that was always really proactive and effective and responsible. So one of the things that we talk about is how can you set boundaries around meetings? And one of those boundaries might be, what are the times of day that you allow meetings to happen? And you might say, I have no control over my calendar, but yeah, you do. You can have control over your calendar. Would you allow someone to put a meeting in at 10 p.m. when your office hours are 9 to 5 or 8 till 6? Probably not. So you can have boundaries around that. You can have boundaries around how long do your meetings go for. My friend Donna McGeorge wrote this awesome book called The 25-Minute Meeting, where she steps out in the book, how can you change your meeting culture in your organization so that they go for 25 minutes and not the default of an hour, which most calendars default to. How do you change that? Why should you change that? What's the benefit of that? And then the other thing with meetings is, do you need to say yes to every meeting that you get invited to? Can you have a boundary around what you go to and what you don't go to? And how do you communicate those so that everyone in your organization understands? And questions you might ask to help you maintain those boundaries might be, who's the meeting for? What's it for? Is there an agenda? Is there a purpose? What's the outcome you want from that meeting? And the killer question: what value will I personally bring to that meeting? The more senior you are, the more meetings you'll get invited to, because people are going to want you there because of your credibility and the status that you bring to them and that meeting. So if you're just there for somebody else's ego boost, do you really need to be there? Ask yourself those questions. So, daring to set boundaries, and this is a good old Brene Brown quote, daring to set boundaries is about having the courage to love ourselves, even when we risk disappointing others. And so, putting that ring around your time and that ring around your energy and that ring around what you give your attention to is really critical in terms of maintaining or creating and maintaining healthy boundaries. So if you feel that people take advantage of you, if you feel mean when you say no to people, particularly if it's family and friends and colleagues who want something from you, if you find it hard to make decisions, and if you're feeling anxious and overwhelmed and like you're on the cusp of burnout, then they're all signs that you need to take a look at your boundaries and put healthier boundaries in place. So how do you do that? It's not the easiest thing to do if you never have before, but there's 5 key things that you need to consider when it comes to boundaries. And in my Thriving Leaders program, which starts again on the 16th of October, if you're interested, I'll chuck a link below. But in my Thriving Leaders program, we talk a lot about boundaries. We talk a lot about why do you need them? How do you maintain them? How do you create them? And crucially, how do you communicate them? But a few things that we talk about how do you assess where you're at? So the first step of identifying what boundaries you might need is to work out, where are you at right now? What are your priorities? What are your values? What do you want to be spending your time doing? What do you want to be putting your energy towards? And where does your attention need to be? And if you if the answers to those questions are not what you're doing, then it's time to think about, what boundaries can I put in place so that I can better prioritize where my time, energy, and attention goes. The second thing you need to think about is being really clear, crystal clear, on what's important to you. What are your top priorities and what are your limits? So one of my priorities is health and my personal health. And having my morning routine and going to the beach in the mornings, which means that not a lot happens in my world before 9:30, because that's when I get back from having a walk in the beach and a cup of tea and a coffee and a breakfast and all those things that I like to do in the morning. There's exceptions, like this morning when I got up and didn't go to the beach because I went to my Caloundra Chamber of Commerce coffee morning. And so that's where there can be some flexibility. The third thing you need to think through when it comes to boundaries is spend time with people who support you, who encourage your boundaries and support and importantly, spend time with people who also have really clear and healthy boundaries in place and who live the values and the ethos of their boundaries. Because the more you can see what healthy boundaries look like in practice from other people, the more you will be inclined to do the same for yourself. Fourth, ask for help when you're overcommitted. What can you do to get help? Who do you ask? Who do you need to have conversations with? And then what can you delegate? What can you delay? What can you dismiss? How do you, again, what do you need to get rid of or postpone so that you can better manage your time, energy, and attention? And then the final thing is learn to say no. Learn to say no directly and firmly. And Brene Brown says, again, love Brene, says clear is kind. And when it comes to setting and maintaining healthy boundaries, clarity is critical, because if you're not clear about what your boundaries are in your mind, then you're not going to be able to communicate them with clarity or consistency to anybody else. So have a think about, do you need these? What do you need in terms of boundaries in your life? And then how are you going to communicate them? If you need any help, please get in touch. If you would like more information about my Thriving Leaders program, I've popped the link below. It starts on the week of the 16th of October. I'd love to have you join. And yeah, I'll be back on Monday afternoon at 2 p.m. Queensland time, 3 p.m. Victoria, New South Wales, ACT, other times in other places. I can only cope with 2 different time zones at a time. And I'll be back on Monday afternoon to talk about another Leadership Comms challenge. So I would love to see you here. And yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Any questions about boundaries, please get in touch. It is one of my favorite things to talk about because I see so clearly the benefits. We're happier, we're healthier, we are less frustrated, we have more joy in our world. And who doesn't want that when we've got healthy boundaries? So until Monday, have a great weekend, everyone, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.